Welcome back to Lights on Turkish Stars, the place for viewers who know the truth rarely shouts from headlines, it whispers through off-camera glances and unposted stories. Today, we're not just grazing a rumor, we're unpacking a tremor that could rattle the foundations of Turkish show business. Our focus lands on two names that, when paired, stop traffic along the Bosphorus and set group chats ablaze: Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda. This is not a bedtime tale wrapped in bows. This is a tangled chronicle of pull and push, of quiet decisions, backstage power plays, and a judgment that left insiders breathless. Before we walk into the storm together, make sure you're subscribed to Lights on Turkish Stars. If this kind of layered breakdown matters to you, tap that like button so more curious minds find their way here. And if you want to be a pillar of this community, consider hitting join. Members get priority in our conversations and help us keep the deep dives independent and fearless. Now, step with me into the heat. In the sprawling theater of Turkish media, some sparks flicker, some fires burn, and some blazes threaten to take the whole stage. What's unfolded around Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda belongs to the last category. For weeks, faint whispers swelled into a tidal roar. A relentless wave of speculation that an irresistible gravitational pull had formed between a woman whose gaze can break your heart in a close-up and a man who navigates international screens like a jet carving new routes in the sky. On paper, it reads like the cultural event of the decade. Fans have been dreaming up this reunion since their earliest scenes together, clipping old footage, stitching edits, and praying fiction might bleed into reality. Then came the ice water. Not a sanitized press note, not a publicist's boilerplate. A message, reportedly from the very center of the situation, delivered with the cold edge of finality. This love cannot happen. If you feel the weight of those 4 words, you know we need to rewind and see how this verdict was forged. The trigger wasn't a red carpet bump-in or a TV interview. It was a private night, a gilded gathering where glasses clinked freely, but the real currents flowed in the corners. Under chandeliers that sparkled like captured stars, the air hummed. Sources woven into the social fabric around these two say Gökberk and Cemre slipped into a pocket of quiet well away from microphones, flashes, and eager ears. What unfolded there wasn't a polite "how are you" exchange between former co-stars. It stretched longer, drew tighter, and pulled the rest of the room into soft blur. A conversation so focused it made everything else fade. From that night on, the hush turned detailed. People spoke of midnight messages, the 3 a.m. kind that confess what daytime edits away. There were whispers of drivers who knew which routes weren't on maps, of meetings coordinated with surgical precision, of a connection that felt too alive to dismiss. And yet, we orbit the same impasse. Cannot happen. Why would a man known for climbing every wall suddenly declare the wall unscalable? Insiders suggest those words, careful, heavy, surfaced over a private dinner guarded like a vault. Phones collected, doors checked twice, staff sworn to quiet. This feeds sensationalism, he is said to have admitted, not with anger, but with a reluctant calm. It doesn't fit the reality. On a structural level, it doesn't hold. It's a home built where the ground keeps shifting. Lights on Turkish Stars family, I want your read here. When someone labels a relationship unworkable in its very frame, is he denying emotion or acknowledging the invisible forces outside of it? Is the no aimed at the person or at the storm around them? Jump to the comments and leave your psychological breakdown. Members with the join badge, I'll be waiting for your insight first, and I'll pin the sharpest takes. Don't forget to like while you're down there. What's being called impossible does not sound like a void of feeling. It sounds like an overload of history and duty. Looming over all of this is a ghost. Not just of past romance, but of a shared on-screen legacy that refuses to settle. In this business, nostalgia is a trap as much as a treasure. It earns loyalty, but it can chain 2 actors to yesterday's script. If Gökberk and Cemre were to cross that line, the collision between what they were and what they could be might be explosive. Would the old embers die quietly or flare, bright enough to torch everything in their orbit? It's the unsolvable equation that keeps agents and executives chewing ice at 2 in the morning. There's another wall, towering and intimate: family. Those who follow Cemre Arda closely know she crafts her life like a sanctuary. Her inner circle polices the threshold to her peace. They've watched what a rumor mill can do to a person's sleep, to their appetite, to their trust in their own instincts. They understand the currency of reputation and how fragile it is under lights. In chapters past, their blessing or refusal has shifted the very ground beneath her. And in this arithmetic, the numbers don't sweeten for a step toward Gökberk. This isn't an insult to him. By every account, there's respect for the work he's done and the reach he's carved. But the package he brings is noisy. He lugs headlines that sprint ahead of him, a passport stamped so often the ink bleeds, schedules that inhale whole weeks, and a life moving at gale force. He's the weather. Her home, by contrast, is built for steadiness, warmth, and shelter. She seeks the harbor. He's charting the open water. Those closest to both say the friction, the gulf between her need for quiet and his current jet stream existence, makes a song that love alone can't tune. As the rumor cannon roared, Cemre made a choice that speaks volumes. She retreated, not passively, but intentionally. She neither confirmed nor denied. She tightened the gates around her private life. The social media drip slowed. Personal shares shrank. Trusted voices urged her to let the storm burn through without throwing it more kindling. Starve it of oxygen. Wait. Across the river, Gökberk stands at a junction. The meetings roll on, his international grid widens, the next scripts find their way to his desk, but there's a pulse he can't put on airplane mode. He's torn between the rush of feeling that surged in that chandelier-lit pocket and the hard arithmetic of an industry that fines you for following your heart. The phrase he offered, the one so many seized on as a blade, might actually be a shield. Insiders insist that when he said this love could not be, he wasn't punishing Cemre. He was covering her. This blaze will burn her, he reportedly told a confidant. He's weathered heat before. For him, the flames pass. For her, a woman who listens to her heartbeat and protects her peace, the scorch marks could linger. That does not sound like indifference. It sounds like someone counting costs in her currency. It's the math of care, not the math of escape. Meanwhile, the internet's keen-eyed archivists have done what they do best, reading crumbs like tea leaves. They point to his recent posts, darker palettes, solitary frames, captions that breathe in gray. They notice her feed cooling, too. Fewer glimpses into the living room, less laughter caught on the go. Even their interactions with mutual friends seem to have lost a degree of warmth. It doesn't read like absence. It reads like aftermath. Something flashed sharp, brief, too bright to last, and now both are walking through the echo. And then there are the timekeepers of the machine, producers, agents, network powers. They are, by all accounts, pleading for this thread to be clipped and filed away. If this bond is dragged into daylight, a powerful intermediary whispered, the fallout won't stop at a few spicy photographs. Projects could wobble. Contracts would twist. Carefully separated brands might warp under 1,000 think pieces. His momentum abroad is a proud export. You don't toss that on a bonfire for drama points. Her grace as a face of homegrown excellence isn't a coin you flick in a fountain and hope for luck. So the countermeasures appear. A joint appearance nudged off the calendar with a polite excuse. A private dinner quietly deleted from the week. Officially, there's nothing to discuss. Unofficially, the frantic choreography to keep them apart says more than any press release could. There's heat here, and someone is trying very hard to smother it before the curtains catch. Which brings us to the edge of the year's last act, staring at a question that refuses to file itself away. When he called it unworkable, was he drawing a line through a fantasy or through a reality too dangerous to hold? Did nothing ever live here, or did something breathe for one dazzling minute before the undertow of family, the haunt of old narratives, and the cold logic of the industry forced it under? Across Istanbul, the consensus has a single point of agreement. The show is not over. The curtain hasn't slammed down. It's been lowered slowly, deliberately. A velvet shield pulled across a stage that could still, one evening, lift without warning and throw us all into an unscripted scene. Now it's your turn. Is cannot happen a final verdict, or a dare the heart always tries to answer? In this hush, who do you think is carrying the heavier ache, Gökberk Yildirim or Cemre Arda? Tell me in the comments. We read them all and look for the sharpest analysis. If you want to help keep this kind of work alive, tap join and become part of the lights on Turkish Stars Core. Like, subscribe, share the video with a friend who tracks every nuance. Until next time, keep your eyes on the edges of the frame, because that's where the truth tends to wait.